Hey gamers, it's Wintermute here from Grind This Game. Back with Oxygen Not Included, my tutorial guide series. And in this episode I want to show you how to build a liquid lock. Because in the last episode I built this series of airlocks here, which kind of worked but not completely, because we're seeing oxygen is getting in here, CO2 is getting in here, and our chlorine is slowly leaking out every time they go in here, which is bad because we're going to get chlorine kind of building up here. So I really should have built the liquid lock first, but I didn't want to do it in a kind of beginner series because I would say it's more of an advanced concept, but it's not too bad. So we're going to build one of those in this episode, and I'm going to be using kind of debug mode just to make it quicker to build. It's easy to build without debug mode, but I'm just going to be doing that to make things a bit faster here. So the idea is to build something like this. So we'll have a little kind of V shape that goes down, and then you want a 2-tile gap in here. Actually, a 3-tile gap, sorry. And what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 bottle emptiers under plumbing. We've got somewhere here. Bottle emptier. We're going to put 2 of those in. You can use granite or sandstone, it doesn't really matter. And you can use O to rotate it so it's facing inward. And we're going to get the dupes to put some water bottles here, and the water's going to leak in here and fill up this tile right here, and fill up a little bit of this area here. And I've left a 3-tile gap so that the liquid lock doesn't completely form. If you put a tile here, then through surface tension it will kind of bleed upwards, but we're going to fill it first. So if you click on your bottle emptier, I'm going to set it as a higher priority, and I'm going to click enable auto bottling, which will allow them to go take water out of here and put it in here. And we're going to select clean water, enable auto bottling, and same thing for this one. Actually, we can just copy the settings. Actually, I'll just do it again. Enable bottling, priority 8, water. And we'll speed things up here so they actually go and get some water here. So there they go. Each little bottle of water they get is 200 kilograms. And we want this tile to fill up with at least 1,000 kilograms of water. The only downside to doing a liquid lock is they get this soggy feet debuff. Joshua just ran through this water, and if we look at him, we can see soggy feet. Increases stress 10% per cycle, and it lasts 100 seconds or so. So not ideal in terms of... Oh, looks like he was just idle. The other downside is they might get a little bit cold if the water's cold, but... So let's see how much water we have in there. We got about 600 kilograms, 700. And we'll wait until we have a little bit more water in here. That's probably enough. There's 999. So this tile is full, and then we've got a little bit more in this tile. And I'm going to build a tile right here. And the surface tension kind of pulls it up against the wall here. So now it's a perfect water seal. I'll wait until I have a bit more water in this tile, the second tile. I'll probably wait until we have about 400 kilograms or so. I'm going to disable this one. And then I'm going to... How much do we have in there? 200. We'll wait till they deliver a little bit more. There they go. So I'll disable this one now as well. And you can actually deconstruct the bottle emptiers, but I tend to leave them because if I ever have to add more water for whatever reason, they're just there and ready to go. Now we got to seal this up all the way to the ceiling so that no air gets out. So like that. So now no air can get out between here and here. So it's safe to remove these. All the chlorine will kind of fill up this area, but it won't be able to get out here. So it's a perfect airlock, which is very handy. So we're going to get oxygen kind of flowing out here, and things will eventually equalize out in terms of the chlorine and stuff. What I will do though is I'm going to dig up here and pretend the dupes ran up here with a ladder, and I'm letting this hydrogen out and this chlorine out. I'll probably dig across here as well. And I'll turn off the auto build so that we can get the dupes to come over here and build a tile just to expose this part of the map. And they should be able to run over because they got a they can run up 2 tiles worth of distance. So there we go. Oh, we got an ice biome up there. That's kind of nice. We'll get into that later. So a lot of this chlorine will make its way across here. Let's dig that out. I'm just using the auto build in debug just so we can I can quickly build things to show you. Now I might also build a ladder kind of straight up here. And try to release this little bit of chlorine up here as well. And same with here, there's some chlorine stuck over here. So that'll make its way down, and we'll have a kind of a perfect chlorine storage room. Now if you have too much oxygen, some of this oxygen got in there from before. If the oxygen level comes down too much, we can just move our food storage down here. So that, oh, we didn't have enough water in there, so I'm going to turn this this bottle emptier back on. And because we want water here. There we go. So we want to make sure there's water always in these 3 tiles and this tile here. There we go. So I'll disable that again. How much water do we have in there? 399. Should be good. If the water level ever comes down, just add a bit more water. And just as a extra security measure, just in case the water lock fails, I'm going to put a airlock here. So if this thing ever fails, and we don't want anything to get out, so this will be an extra safety measure right here. So that's kind of one topic I wanted to get through in this episode, the liquid lock. Very useful. Good for dealing with natural gas areas, which you'll encounter later in the game, if you don't want any gas to leak out. With the downside of that debuff they get from walking in the water. Now the other thing I wanted to do in this episode was show you a way to make a kind of an infinite bathroom. And I'm going to just set things up here. I'll be right back, just to kind of set things up for the infinite bathroom. Okay, so I'm back, and I wanted to show you how to make what I call an infinite bathroom. So we've got outhouses which use dirt, and eventually we will run out of dirt. There's ways to get renewable dirt, but the other thing about the outhouses is they create more germs. They create 200,000 germs, and the duplicates have to go and clean them all the time, which is a waste of their time. So the upgraded version of the outhouse is under plumbing, and it's the lavatory. So what we're going to do is destroy one of these outhouses. You don't want to destroy all 3 at once because you want to be able to have bathrooms for them to go to while you kind of upgrade them. So I'm going to put a lavatory in. And again, I'm using debug mode just for speed. And this washroom needs an input and an output. When you go to build it, you can see under plumbing. There's a white input and a green output. The other thing we can notice about the lavatory is that it uses 5 kilograms of water, but it outputs 11.7 kilograms of polluted water. So it's a way of actually generating water. And also the food poisoning germs are only 105,000 versus the 200,000 of the outhouse. So what we got to do is get a way to get water to this lavatory and then a place for the dirty water to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig down here and build a ladder down into this kind of water pool that we have here. And then we would send the dupes in and build under plumbing, there's a liquid pump. Copper's fine. We'll build it down here at the bottom. And it's going to need, it's going to suck up water, and it's going to have this output, and the output has to go to like a consumer of water, which is kind of the lavatory. So under plumbing, we're going to do liquid pipe, and I'm going to use granite. And the only downside to using granite is that it will kind of leak some of its heat or coolness depending on how cold or hot the liquid is. But for now, I'm going to use, actually I'm not going to use granite. I'm going to tell you how to do it the right way, and that's to use abyssalite, which is this material here that you'll find in the map. So you'll tell your dupes to go dig some of that out. And the nice thing about abyssalite is it's an insulator. So if you look under its thermal conductivity, it's 0. And that way, if you're moving hot water or cold water, the temperature will remain within it. So make sure you have some abyssalite before you do this. And you can use insulated pipes for even more insulation, but I tend to just use the liquid pipe made out of abyssalite. It says it's an insulator, so we'll build this along here. The output of the pump going into our lavatory. And then the output pump will go up here, and I'm going to send it off to kind of a storage area. And it needs a liquid vent at the end of the pipe in order to empty. So you can use copper or iron or gold, whatever you have. So there we go. Once you know, you can tell it's working if this thing says, well, right now it says empty pipe, because we don't have power connected to this pump yet. So I'm going to go use a regular wire and connect that up to our power system over here. Now the pump's working. If you hit F6 or up here in the plumbing overlay, we can see the water is moving. Speed things up here. So that's clean water going into our lavatory. And then when they come and use this lavatory, the polluted water with germs will come out here and dump into this little pit. Now you also want to do the same thing with your, there's an upgraded version of the wash basin, which doesn't require the dupes to go in and change the dirty water all the time, so we'll destroy that. Then under medicine, we've got a sink, which is like the upgraded version of the wash basin. The same thing, we'll use a pipe made out of abyssalite, and we'll make the input go in the sink and the output go off to this polluted water line. And we can change the sink so it's only facing to the right, because that's going to be where they're getting dirty and coming back out. So now I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other two. I'm going to pause it while I do this, just because we don't want any bathroom accidents. And sinks under medicine. And we'll just kind of repeat the process. The input line, output lines. There we go. Now, when you're building this manually without cheating like I'm doing, it'll be a bit slower, but... Oh, and I missed some pipes. That should be input there and input there. So now they've used the bathroom, and we can see the polluted water is coming out. And that polluted water is dumping into this little pit here. And we can see the polluted water has germs in it. If we click on the actual polluted water, we can see lots of germs. And the germs are growing because they're in polluted water. Now we could have sent it to this area here, but I decided just to do a different pit. Now the way to make this kind of an infinite bathroom is to use a piece of equipment that's under, if you go into research, under distillation. So after filtration, there's distillation. There's a thing called a water sieve. And that will filter polluted water into clean water. But it doesn't completely clean it, which is kind of confusing to new players. So under refinement, we've got the water sieve. You can see it takes in polluted water, outputs, it takes in polluted water, outputs polluted dirt and clean water. So I'll build one of those. I'm going to put it up near the top of the base because I want all my warm stuff to be at the top of the base. Maybe I'll stick it right here. And I'm going to rotate it using O because I want the input to be on the right. And I'm also going to cheat and mop this up just so I can show you something here. So this needs power. We'll hook up the power. And it also needs an input and an output. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the output of the dirty bathrooms, which has dirty polluted water. We're going to put it into the sieve, which is basically like a water filter. And then the output's going to come out of here. And this is going to be clean water, but it's going to be clean water filled with germs, which isn't as bad as it sounds, and I'll explain in a bit here. But I'm also going to use a liquid bridge made out of abyssalite. And I'm going to put the input of the bridge, this output pipe's going to go into the input of a bridge, and I'll explain why in a second. But there's also going to be a secondary line that comes out this way and has a liquid vent output. And I'm going to destroy all this old pipe that I had before just because we don't need it anymore. So the way I had it set up before, it would put the the clean water in here with the polluted water in here with germs, and we'd have to deal with it at some point. But now that we're filtering it, we can kind of create an infinite loop here, and I'll show you what I mean. So we'll use a liquid pipe made out of abyssalite, and out of this liquid bridge, we're going to tie it back in here and disconnect this. Because there's some water already in the system. What will happen is clean water will come in, go into the bathroom, dirty water will come out, the dirty water will go into the sieve and turn it into clean water with germs. And the way bridges work is that the priority of the flow will be first to go down here and kind of recycle, so this thing will run forever. But because the bathroom outputs more polluted water than it inputs clean water, eventually this line will back up. And once it backs up to this point, it'll start overflowing to this area here. And this will be clean water with germs in it. Now you may want to set the priority of your sieve quite high so that the duplicates bring sand to it. It consumes sand in order to clean, and it also outputs polluted dirt, so you may want to put a compost beside it so the dupes can deal with that polluted water as it comes out. So we'll build a compost right there. Set it to priority 7. And we can see inside the water sieve. The sand will eventually turn into polluted dirt. You can see the polluted dirt coming through, polluted water coming through, and we can see it recycled and went back into the loop. Now the reason we used abyssalite is because the water sieve has a peculiarity where the water that goes in can be at any temperature, but the water that comes out at 40 degrees Celsius. So if we had regular granite pipe here, that 40 degree water would start to heat up the surrounding area, which right now is at 24 degrees. And eventually when this backs up, the overflow water will be at 40 degrees, so we'll have to be careful to kind of deal with that temperature. We can insulate it using insulated tile. But what I like to do is take this extra clean water with germs and send it off to my plants. So I've got bristle blossoms right here. We could do something like this. Actually, let me destroy these. Yeah, I'm going to destroy these even though they're kind of ready to go. So under food, there's hydroponic farms. We'll build a couple or some of those. And we could even take the line from here with abyssalite. And we could branch off and send some of that germy water from the overflow way down to these hydroponic tiles. Now these things act as a floor, so you shouldn't really build them on top of a floor like I just did. But I just wanted to show you kind of in place without moving my light. So those will eventually get our overflow water. Now I'll skip ahead until the water line backs up so we can see this thing and how it works after the fact. So here we go. It's completely backed up. And you can see instead of going down here now, well, it'll preferentially go down here, but if it's backed up, it'll come across here and it'll split right here. Half will go off to the plants and half will go down here. Now you could set 100% to your plants, and I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to cut off the flow there, so 100% goes this way, down here and down to our plants. The only risk of doing this is that this line could eventually back up. If there's too much clean water being produced, you run the risk of it all backing up. So you could just keep an eye on it, or you could dump the excess in here, or you could dump the excess in here and then pump it out to your plants. Whatever is kind of your preference. But make sure to use a bislight pipe because this is 40-degree clean water, and eventually it'll get warm in here as well. So we got to make sure we actually plant something in here. I'm going to plant some bristle blossoms. And because that water is 40 degrees, this area will slowly warm up. So you'll have to put some cooling in this area. Sorry, I got a cough, so I gotta edit or mute myself sometimes here. Okay, so here we go. We can see there's water in there. It's actually at 25 degrees right now. But eventually it'll be warmer and warmer water and become 40 degrees. So you might want to use some weezeworts, which are little creatures that cool areas. You might want to put some weezeworts in here to keep this nice and cool. Alternatively, you could cool the water before it ends up at your plants. Now, like I said before, this so-called clean water that's coming out is full of germs. So you wouldn't want to use this clean water that's full of germs for making, for instance, mush bars, because you would have food poisoning right in your food. But it is okay to send the germy water into the plants. The plants kind of don't care about the germs, and eventually the plants that grow here, they'll be clean, they'll be fine. Which is kind of a nice way to completely clean the polluted dirt, or polluted water, sorry. Now I noticed we got some growth problems here. That's because there's some chlorine building up in here. And we do have CO2 building up, which is kind of a problem. There's a couple ways to deal with this. You can keep digging areas out for the CO2. Oh, I just dug out some slime. That was a big mistake. Let me seal that back in. Don't dig up the slime, is my advice, until you have kind of a way to deal with it. And I'll go into that in a different episode. The other way to deal with it, we should open this up so the CO2 can flow down. The other way to deal with it is with a carbon skimmer. Under oxygen, carbon skimmer. And you probably want to build this out of gold if you have gold. If not, I guess just use copper. And you want to put it kind of quite far down in your base where the CO2 is settling. And it requires a clean water input and a polluted water output. So I'll just kind of mock things up here. The clean water would come along. Actually, let's build a proper floor here. Clean water would come along, ideally in a bislight pipe because it might be hot water. I just build everything out of bislight in terms of piping. Clean water in, and then polluted water would come out, and you'd have to deal with it. You could dump it in a pit, or you could actually do a similar trick that we did with the bathrooms and use a sieve under refinement, turn it around to kind of clean the polluted water as it came out. So bislight pipe in, Now clean water will come out and we could kind of feed it back in an infinite loop. But we'll first have to add some water to kind of prime the system. And I guess I could do that here, since we already have a clean water line. Let's do that. Come across like this. Actually, I probably don't want to use this line because it's kind of a closed loop right now. I'm gonna make a line off this pipe here, or this pump here. So let's make some room for it. Here we go. We'll take that water line. Oh, I should have made my floor all the way over. And to get across pipes like this, we can use the liquid bridge as well. Kind of jump across. And then come down the other side. We'll come across. This is not nice looking piping I'm doing right here. It's just to quickly show how this thing works. So there we go. Clean water in, polluted water will come out, and as it's running, it will eat up the CO2 that's in here. So it's going to need power. And our power line up here is kind of maxed out. So I'm going to build another coal generator down here, safely away from our plants, because it generates heat. So we'll put a coal generator right here. And it's going to need a battery. Later on we'll get... Oh, we actually have smart batteries. Later on we'll get smart batteries and I'll show you how to use those. But for now, we'll just hook up a regular battery to these two pieces of equipment here. And we'll set the priority of the coal generator to 8 so that the dupes come and deliver some coal really quickly. So there we go. It's running. Clean water's going in. Now this polluted water that comes out, assuming you've put clean germ-free water in, will actually be polluted water without germs. So the clean water that eventually comes out of this sieve will be germ-free. So you could use it for making wish bars if you wanted, but at this point of the game, you're probably going to stop making wish bars and making lice loaf instead, or you can cook things with bristle blossom. So we got to make sure that there's water kind of primed in here. That's all backing up. So once it's completely backed up, we can make a cut in the pipe here. Now you might want to empty it first using empty pipe down in the bottom right here. But you'll need a certain dupe with certain skills to be able to do that. There's a plumber. So under groundskeeper, there's a plumber. Or you can just cut the pipe and a little bit of water will dribble out. And then you'll have to mop it up. But let's just make this a perfect loop now. So there we go. We can deconstruct those. And this thing will just kind of run forever. Now, both of these devices get pretty warm when they're running. You can see this thing's getting really hot. So you probably want to put some cooling, Weezeworts, or Weezeworts work pretty well. If it starts to overheat, you can always disable it. And later on, I'll teach you how to use automation to make it come on and turn off. But for now, this is just you won't have a lot of the automation stuff early on. So we'll just set it up like this. And as this thing runs, it'll eat up all the CO2, and you'll notice the kind of the oxygen level will make its way down, lower and lower and lower, which is a good thing. But that's a way to do it kind of infinitely. You want to set the priority on the sieve high so that they come and replace the sand quickly. And you may also want to put a compost beside it, because that's where the polluted dirt will come out, and they'll put it in the compost. And in addition, you may also want to put a deodorizer here, because this area might get a little bit stinky with the polluted dirt popping out. Same thing, higher priority on that, so the dupes tend to it quickly. So that was a lot I packed into this episode. For you advanced players, I know I'm going kind of slow, but for new players, maybe I went too fast. I'm not quite sure. And I've been neglecting my dupes while I've been doing all this. So we're probably getting close to... Oh no, we still have lots of coal and algae. Things are still running okay. Food's okay. Immunity's 100, that's good. Stress is fairly low. But we got our liquid lock made. The chlorine levels are good. The oxygen's come up to this level, which is nice. So this food will stay sterile forever. Oops. And we got our infinite bathroom hooked up. Infinite until you run out of sand, but you're not going to run out of sand because there's so much of it in the game. And you can actually manufacture sand using a couple different methods. Yeah, so I hope that helped. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.